Greetings, my name is Louise Dente, and I welcome you to yet another edition of Cultural Caravan Live. Welcome. We are excited. We have a wonderful array of very distinguished educators here to share with you some of their thinking as relates to what are some of the strategies to empower our children to success. In previous broadcasts, we've shared with you spotlights on some wonderful students, particularly giving you spotlight to the wonderful children at the Eagle Academy for Young Men, as well as other opportunities to celebrate our children and our children's greatness. But today we're going to spend time speaking with some of our finest minds, and I just want to introduce the dais to my left. Right next to my immediate left is Brother Basir Mchawi. He is a distinguished educator, activist, communicator, and he's very popularly known for a program on the WBAI known as Education at the Crossroads. And next to him is Sister Barbara Glover. She is an educator. She's a trainer of teachers. She has been in this business for many years, but currently she is a teacher of African history at Lehman College in New York. Let's welcome Sister Barbara Glover. And right next to her, who's no stranger to the community, the distinguished doctor, I call him doctor, but brother, Professor James Blake. He is not only is he an activist, he's a tenured professor at the Borough Manhattan Community College. He's also done been involved with many programs to develop our youth. Let's give it up for brother Professor Blake. And I am going to get started. Each of our panelists are going to basically give you a brief overview of their perspectives on how we can basically steer our children towards greatness. And they have at least about anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. We'll give them a 3-minute indicator before we move forward. Okay, are we ready? All right, right now we're going to introduce Brother Basir Mchawi.
No, we're good. Okay. Hotep. Barigani. Assalamu alaikum. I'm going to start. This week has been a difficult week in a number of different kinds of ways. One thing that happened, and I don't know if all of you know, but Dr. Carlos Russell, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that name. Dr. Carlos Russell made his transition earlier this week. Now, for me, he was a friend and a comrade, and we had a long history in terms of working together. But Carlos, as I call him, was probably most well known as being the creator, conceptually, of Black Solidarity Day, which he did back in 1969. So Carlos, a staunch Pan-Africanist. Carlos was born in Panama. So when people now talk about the Afro-Latino movement, Carlos was a pioneer in the Afro-Latino movement because he was talking Black Solidarity Day back in 1969, before many of those folks who call themselves Afro-Latino were running away from Africa in any way that they could. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Carlos Russell, which I think is important. We're here in 2018. 2018 is 50 years from 1968. And 1968 is an important year for us as a people. If we go back and think about all the different kinds of things that happened in 1968, it's really amazing. We start out at the beginning of the year. We go into the springtime. We have the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. At that particular point, all of us who were able-bodied, we erupted in all different kinds of ways wherever we happened to be. At that particular point in 1968, I happened to be a student at New York University. And we did all kinds of stuff. We shut NYU down. We had the administration beg us to go ahead and see what they could do to get us to stop tearing stuff up. And they ended up creating a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship, which brought, in September of 1968, all different kinds of black folks, Latino folks, to New York University. That happened, well, April 4th, 1968 is the assassination. The Poor People's Campaign. Dr. King went ahead and initiated a Poor People's Campaign in 1968. The problem, of course, at that particular point, and it's a problem that we have as a people, is that the campaign was too much associated with Dr. King himself. One of our issues as a people is that we deal with individual charismatic leadership, and we see that the problem with that all the time is all you have to do is remove that individual charismatic leader, and that's the end of the movement, the end of the organization, and we've seen that too many times. We need to see how we can get over that. In 1968, in the fall, we had the struggle for community control of schools. Ocean Hill, Brownsville, IS 201 in Harlem, two bridges in Lower Manhattan, the Lower East Side. And I think from that particular struggle, we need to understand that if, in fact, we want to talk about the education of our children, we have to talk about self-determination. We have to talk about black power. We can't be concerned with going to white people for the approval of what it is that we want to do. We need to go ahead and do it ourselves. We can go back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he said it a long time ago. He said, if they don't treat you right, what makes you think they will teach you right? That's it. Right there. So we have to determine what it is that we can do, and we have to do what it is that we do on a number of different levels. First, as organizations, we need to build institutions in our community that are run by us, that are financed by us, and in doing so, we need to then create programs which specifically go ahead and deal with the education of our youth. As individuals, let's deal with the question of parents. And this is something that I do all the time, and it's quite interesting. We're in a facility right now, and if you look around the facility, you really see two things. You see artwork and you see books. But let's go into people's homes, into their houses, where parents have children, and see what it is that we actually see. Very often, the major thing that we're going to see in the home is a 50-inch high-definition color television. We're not going to see any books. We're not going to see any artwork very often in regards to these particular homes. And then, of course, we wonder why, well, my son, he doesn't want to read. No, he doesn't want to read because you have not shown in any kind of way, shape, or form that you in your life have a value for books, learning, and education. I've taught adults, folks coming back to school, and that's one of the things that I've always told them, emphasize. Listen, if you're going back to college, you're going back to school, do your homework with your children when they do their homework. Put books, folks do it all the time. They'll go ahead in school, and you won't see books out. They'll hide the books and stick them under the bed in the bedroom somewhere, whatever else it is, as if almost, I guess, they're afraid that they actually go ahead and have books. They don't want anybody to know. And of course, you remember a long time ago when we said, if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book. All right? That's true today as it was 50 years ago, and probably even more true because now with social media and all of this electronic, all the gadgetry that we have and is all around us, Very often, our children have less use in their mind for books than they actually really had 50 years ago. So we have to start at that very, very ground level in regards to what we do as parents, what we do as teachers, in regards to going ahead and looking at the particular places where we are. Give you an example. Back in the 1980s, I went to, as a teacher, I started at Boys and Girls High School after having been at a number of different institutions over time. And one thing that was happening at that particular point is that Boys and Girls High School had undergone a lot of turmoil. And well, we had to determine what it was that we were going to do to go ahead and make that school a little bit different, right? Frank Mickens, who is now an ancestor, he was the principal, and he was a very interesting and innovative educational leader. But once again, in regards to giving credit and giving credit where credit is due, it wasn't the individual charismatic leader. It was a bunch of dedicated black men and women who were teachers and parents, and some dedicated students who went ahead and turned that school around. We had to do things on a very basic level. Let me give you one example. We started something at Boys and Girls High School called the Umoja Committee. And we were seeking in regards to unity, because of course, unity is important in everything we do. It's probably our major problem as a people, because if in fact we were able to speak with one voice, we wouldn't have all the issues that we have right now. If we could go ahead in one voice and tell de Blasio or tell Cuomo what it was that we wanted educationally, we would be fine, because we would be speaking with one voice. We speak with a multiplicity of voices. And I mean, actually, when you go ahead and hear everybody speaking, it ends up being a lot of noise because everybody is saying something different. Okay? Unity is critically important. Quickly, as far as Boys and Girls High School, Boys and Girls High School was so backwards, we went into the cafeteria where the students actually went ahead and ate lunch. And we looked around the walls, and there was nothing on those walls but white images. Albert Einstein, all kinds of white, Beethoven, all kinds of white. There was not one image of a black person in that cafeteria. So what did we do? Umoja Committee came together. We said, listen, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our posters that we have, and we're going to go ahead, wait till the school is shut down at night. We're going to go into the cafeteria, take all of that stuff, all those white people down, and we're going to put images of our people up. So we had images of John Coltrane and Billie Holiday, and I mean all different kinds of people, to show you at the very basic level the kinds of things that we have to do, but also the kinds of things that we were faced with in regards to attempting to try to begin to transform the education of a group of black and Latino children in Bed-Stuy back at that time. But that's it for the moment.
Good afternoon. I'm here representing mother, grandmother, aunties, and saying we can change this school system around. All of our children will not go into private schools. We got to deal with what we have in the public schools. And I dare to say that we have to talk to our children about scholarship. And I'm talking about, as brother said here, reading and writing and arithmetic, the 3 R's. And we got to let them see us struggling with it also. It is very important. I teach a course called The History of African American Education at Lehman College. I've done work with curriculum at Columbia University Teachers College, and I know that it is part of the curriculum and it is part of building self-esteem that our children will move forward. What I did with my students, and I'm very happy to say it was because of my husband who invited me to go with him to Nigeria in 1977. I then came back to the United States of America and said to my students and talked about the glorious glories of Africa. And my students said to me, how do we know if you're telling us the truth about Africa? That is our children, being able to critically think. And then I said, well, in 1983, we're going to go to Africa. All right, and what happened is that I got a group of parents who said, we want our children to go with you, Mrs. Glover, to Africa. And our school board was a little bit upset because the children were all heavily endowed with melanin, and the other children did not want to join us. And it was a push to say, well, why don't you go and invite the other children of other ethnicity to join us? And I said, they are all welcome, but we're running the show. Our children began to fundraise. People, and black people will give you money. If they see children working, they will give you the money, okay? There's no doubt about it. They know that you're not running out of town, and many of them were part of the 60s, so they were part of Elijah Muhammad's movement. They were part of the Garvey movement, and they knew that we were talking about self-determination. Our children went to Africa in 1983. We've taught about 25 African countries and went to Western Asia, i.e., the Black Israel Tour, and Jordan. And this is done by our children, but I'm here to say that we have to talk to our children about scholarship. I do this in my book club, and I do this in my classes, because I said, let us talk about what happened to those enslaved black women and men when they were let off of the plantations and they ran away. How did they learn to read and write? How did Frederick Douglass learn to read and write? He didn't know how to read, but he listened. He was able to use critical thinking. He was able to mimic the massa, and he learned to read and write and became the ambassador to Haiti. So we go from pre-Civil War education to Reconstruction period, where our children then, and parents, mothers and fathers, set up schools for their children, private schools, public schools. The government gave monies, and we had universities and we had secondary schools, particularly for Native Americans and poor whites and blacks, and built schools in the South. And in the North, too. Kentucky was one of the first schools that had an educational system, in Pennsylvania. And so they learn all of this. So when you come to the table and tell me, I don't know how to read, I say, yes, you did. Your ancestors learned how to read. Okay, mimic them until you do know how to read. So we go from pre-Civil War, we go into Reconstruction, we deal with Jim Crow, all the way to what is called the curriculum of inclusion, all right? Our children, our parents don't know this, our administrators don't know all this information, so we're constantly teaching, all right? We've got to do this. We're on the battlefield 24/7. We have to align our children with positive thinkers, educators, who are going to talk that talk. And the other piece, if you go to a school board, let me tell you, our parents went to school board, and we would say, no, let 2 or 3 people ask the question. You just show up with all this melanin in your complexion. They stopped for a minute. The school board, the monies that go to educating our children, that's all part of our taxes. So we've got to be on the front lines, and we have to demand. And we have to demand, one, of our children. It's okay, it's cool. You know, you can do this. We have to demand of our school system, teachers, people, please. Black folks think you go away for the summer, that you go on vacation. Other folks are in that school deciding who's going to be their children's teacher. Okay, what courses, what AP courses my children are going to be taking. So this stuff about we have to be on vacation during the summer is over, all right? We are lagging, we are behind the scenes, but you know what? If we know the information, we are going to carry the information. Love having you ask me questions. This is my mission, and so I thank you for giving me this minute or two to talk. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, this has been quite an afternoon in terms of knowledge sharing and information gathering. And I'm going to just speak directly to the subject. Okay. You want me to start? Okay. This has been a fantastic afternoon. The information that we've received has been just so enlightening. And I just want to get straight to the topic, strategies for empowering our children. And I want to talk about some strategies that, in my experience as an educator and also as a human being and working with children, that have been effective. First of all, one of the strategies is passion. If you have the passion to help children, and regardless of the situation that they might be in, if you see beyond their pain and know that inside of them is a passion to be successful in life. Circumstances have taken them off their particular balance or ability to articulate their pain, or to articulate what they want to do. So you can have a passion. And I think about the passion and how it affected me in my life. Just down the block on Union Hall Street in Jamaica, there was a place called a Queens Children's Shelter. I was 9 years old when I was placed in that shelter. I was placed in a place that, in my first time in my life, I was with a whole bunch of like 100 and something kids. And there were kids in a dormitory. I was 9 years old, they put us in this dormitory. And I think about these Mexican kids and being separated from their parents, and I can identify. Because when I was in that shelter at night, when they cut the lights out, you can hear these kids crying for their mothers, crying for their fathers in the darkness, crying, "Mommy, Daddy." And I was listening to them. I was 9 years old, but I didn't realize it at the time. A passion was being born within me to help these children. And I thought so much about their pain that I forgot about my own. And I have used that passion and searched for that passion in every child or student that I come in contact with. I don't care what their situation is. I know that if we can tap their passion, that we can help them overcome it. My passion, the social worker found out that after my family was dislocated, et cetera, I had a passion to reunite my family. And as I grew into the system, I went from the Queens Children's Shelter to the Woody Crest Children's Home, and by the time I was 17, 18, I was getting ready to graduate from high school, and a social worker said to me, "What are you going to do after high school?" I said, "I'm going to get a job and bring my family together," because that was my passion. Up until that time, I was a very difficult kid. I mean, I had gone through everything that you can think of in the streets and the gangs and the chaplains and the El Cuentos and all of that. But I had that passion to reunite my family. So that social worker was able to tap into that. He said, "Well, how are you going to do that?" I said, "I'm going to get my high school diploma and get a job." He said, "No, you need more than a high school diploma if you're going to achieve what you want to do." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You're going to have to go to college." Well, nobody in my family ever went to college, so I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, "If you go to college for another 4 years, then you can get a college degree and you can get a good job and get your family together again." And I was with him until he said, "But you'll stay here in Woody Crest for the next 4 years." I said, "No way, I'm not staying in this place." So I refused to take the scholarship. I found out, though, from a friend that if you get a scholarship from Woody Crest, they give you $1,000. So I decided that I was going to take the scholarship, take the $1,000 and split after I left Woody Crest. So I'm on the lake up, they give you a job in the summer, and I'm on this lake, to make things short. I meet this guy from North Carolina. He went to a black college. I never knew there were black colleges. I didn't even know there were black teachers growing up in New York. And I looked at his yearbook. I said, "Who are these people?" He said, "These are my professors." I said, "But they're black." He said, "Yeah, all of my teachers were black. There was segregation at the time." And I decided that I would go to North Carolina Central University, whose motto is eagles, by the way, and eagles fly higher than any bird can. And I graduated, and with my passion, I took it and put it into my profession. So my passion became my profession. Thank you.
you know, girl, you look good, you're out of sight, out of sight. Oh, baby,